promised a part 2, so here's part 2. Same things apply as last time. Beware of spoilers, don't attack anyone I mention, and keep in mind I'm just saying my opinion and you're free to disagree with me. If you haven't watched part 1, I would highly recommend it. Link in the doobly-doo. Till death do us part. This part's gonna be a bit different. I'm dividing the rest of my critiques based on characters rather than overall critiques. I still do have those, but it'll be easier to address when divided like this. Before I get started on that though, I'd like to make a little bit of a disclaimer. When I critique a work for potentially offensive material, I am not trying to cancel it, nor am I accusing creators of having a secret agenda and trying to push it. We all grow up in a very bigoted society and subconsciously reinforce negative biases. I do this. You do this. Everyone does it. I'd honestly argue that Hazbin has way less offensive content than basically most other adult cartoons that I've seen, which is a good thing. That doesn't make it immune from criticism. Intentions are obviously important, but I am going to review this in the best faith possible, assuming that they didn't mean any harm in their portrayals. Intentions are obviously important, but results are what matter the most. Finally, let's get into this. First on the chopping block is... Alastor is... well, he's a lot of things. I was originally going to dedicate quite a bit of this section to discussing the potential racism and anti-Semitism in both him and his friends, but I don't really feel comfortable doing that as someone who's not affected by either. So I will be linking threads and videos by people who have been affected by those things that are worth a read and or a watch. Some of them have varying opinions, and I feel like that's important in these discussions because no one is a monolith. I just feel it would be remiss to not address these conversations in a thorough critique of the show. To keep it short, with Alastor, there's a lot of discussion over his design being very whitewashed, as he's supposed to be a mixed Creole man from Louisiana, as well as this being a very consistent problem in the show, with few characters other than Velvet and Vaggie having noticeable non-Eurocentric features, which, as a character designer, if you have this wacky and cartoony of an art style, yet there's still this level of same face, that's sort of a skill issue in my opinion. The other thing with Alastor is the initial portrayal of voodoo being negatively appropriative, as it seems Alastor's aesthetics were more pulled off a Disney villain than, like, actual voodoo practitioners. A lot of the symbols and iconography for his voodoo were removed in the Amazon, which is, I think, a really good thing that they listened to those criticisms, but a lot of the influence is still there. Then there's the discussion of whether Rosie and Mimsy fall under anti-Semitic stereotypes. One being a Jewish mother stereotype as well as a cannibal, and the other being a Jewish American princess trope, respectively. I feel like these issues are especially important to bring up because as of writing this, there have been reports and pictures coming out of multiple white Alastor cosplayers in literal fucking blackface at a Boston fan expo. I will not be showing the pictures on here, but these are fairly easy to find, and I've seen many Black Helliverse fans express that there's a consistent racism problem in the fandom, as well as many believing this face paint was meant to mock people who draw fan art of Alastor with darker skin than in canon. If it's that much of a problem that I've seen a few people bring that up independently, then you're not always responsible for your fan base, but I don't know, I just think that's something that needs to be addressed instantly, because that is not acceptable under any circumstances, no matter what their excuses are. As far as Alastor's writing goes, he's one of my least favorite characters by far. He's just deeply, deeply inconsistent. I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, as he's supposed to be a manipulative character, and it's good to demonstrate this by how differently he interacts with a lot of different people. However, they don't execute this very well. We're supposed to believe that Alastor is this very intelligent and powerful character who holds his cards close with the dark side, since they do this zoom-in radiostatic spoopy thing where he says something a little off every single episode.
I wouldn't try that, my dear. This face was made for radio. Oh, this will be fun. I definitely remember you now.
Well, that's a lot less fun. Interesting.
Let's keep this between us.
But how he's consistently written doesn't actually show that. In part 1, I used this argument between Lucifer and Alastor as being an example of bad cursing for this exact reason. If he were really holding his cards close, he wouldn't so obviously curse out the king of hell like this. I feel like he's just an incoherent amalgamation of a bunch of sexy man tropes cobbled together without rhyme or reason. In all honesty, the most potential I saw for him was in episode 7. I think he gives off those queer-coded 30s musical character vibes at his strongest, and I really enjoyed his chemistry with Rosie.
Come now, Alastor, she's much too young for you. Oh, I'm just kidding. I know you're an ace in the hole.
A what now?
Speaking of, before learning some unfortunate stereotypes as a part of her, I found Rosie to be an endearing character herself. Seeing this cannibal queen and then being completely subverted that she's this kind character willing to just have some tea with Charlie when she's in need is great. I remember reading an article recently that Viv apparently has an encyclopedic knowledge on old musicals, and I enjoyed this episode the most when it was making homages to that. Her clear passion for theater being most prominent in Hello Rosie, echoing back to everything from The Music Man to, obviously, Hello Dolly, was really great. Back to Alastor, I realized very late in the script that there is another all-powerful fruity demon who holds his cards close and is very petty, and that would be Ranove from Umineko When They Cry. First of all, would recommend, yes, it is worth the length. I just feel he's a better executed version of what Alastor could have been. Without spoiling too much, Ranove is, much like his namesake, a powerful demon who has dominion over servants. He's working alongside his master Beatrice against Battler, but despite being her servant, he's very catty to her. To say he's subtle would be incorrect. He looks down upon humans, and he will let you know this. His classy demeanor is not out of respect or courtesy, as manners should be, but rather a sense of superiority. Ranove's manner of insulting people is unique to him, he has a clear voice, a type of jester's privilege in the situation he's in. Alastor, on the other hand, doesn't really have a voice. Yes, Umineko is insanely long, and I have only read it once, but if you were to give me a line from the VN, I would be able to tell you if it was Ranove's or not. To expect the same level of characterization in a VN twice the length of War and Peace and an 8-episode season is unrealistic, but when you're cut for time, you need to have consistent and tight writing. Considering Alastor has the most B-plots, the most Sakuga shots, the most everything, he's just not enough. I don't even need to keep making these videos, I can just say not enough and be done with it. But they didn't put the bare minimum into consistently writing a character like this, so why the hell should I care about him? It's frustrating because despite him having arguably more attention than the main character of the show, most of my characterizations of him is me grasping at straws to create a coherent personality, and I just don't care for that very much. While not having a distinct voice is a problem most characters in this show have, I can't say I have this level of questioning what the hell they're trying to go for with anyone other than Alastor. Alright, so embarrassingly late into this video did I realize I hadn't really properly addressed Alastor's voodoo influences, but I've seen the frequent retort that, well, Hazbin appropriates from Christianity, so why is voodoo any different? And to that I say, what are you talking about? Christianity in most places, but not all of them, is not a minority religion. It is a majority religion, or they do not face extreme discrimination because most people know what Christianity is because of the horrors of colonialism, especially in the United States. While voodoo is very much a minority religion, and not many people practice it. When we're discussing representation of underrepresented groups, you need to be extra careful and sensitive when handling those things. Again, most of the stuff was removed, but the influence is still there. Someone's culture is not your Halloween set dressing. The constant portrayal of voodoo in popular culture as demonic or wrong is so unbelievably prevalent, especially because voodoo to most people is just synonymous with like demon magic or something. I think this is something people try to paint as not a big deal when people critique the show or that they're just trying to nitpick, but the history of voodoo goes hand in hand with slavery, so its demonization goes hand in hand with pro-slavery and anti-black propaganda, because that's literally where the idea came from of it being demon magic. And as I said in the beginning, we grow up as products of our environment. And considering how prevalent this idea is of voodoo being demon magic in popular culture, it's something that continues repeating itself. And it won't stop until someone actually makes the stand and portrays it correctly. The anger I've seen from those who actually practice voodoo is less with Alastor himself as a lone product. It's not only him, and he's more just one more instance of their religion and culture being further exotified in popular media. And I just felt like I had to add this on, I'm sorry. I just don't think the whole, oh, well, they appropriate from Christianity too is a really good excuse considering, you know, everything. So this video has been in production hell for a few months now and very late, but apparently season 2 is gonna have an Alastor focus. What happened to this being female-led? What happened to there being a focus on female characters? Great. Now let me focus on some female characters. Yay! Good transition. Alright, it took us this long to get to the protagonist, so what do I think of Charlie as the main character of Hazbin? I think she's quite great, actually. I think she fits the show quite perfectly. I explained her in the first video as resembling a character who's been isekai'd from My Little Pony, and I stick by that explanation because I think it's a good descriptor for her. She feels very out of place. Well, she's supposed to, but wow. I really like the very sheltered Princess of Hell contrasting with the world around her, and I think part of this is executed well, but again, the fact she curses at all, as well as the maturity for the rest of the writing, she doesn't stand out as much as she could, and I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I don't think the contrast is serious enough, especially considering the lack of actual color contrast in this show, Jesus Christ. But I mean, I haven't watched Hell of a Boss, and I know there's some weird ass shit regarding class in that show, but I'm not gonna really touch on to there, and it kinda seeps through the writing here, because I've seen a lot of people call Charlie a white savior, and I can't exactly disagree with that, because while I do like her bubbly and upbeat personality, I do see that she gives off some giving money to homeless people on TikTok live vibes, and I completely respect that people see that. The writers seem to nail writing cartoony characters a lot more than when they try to make them more subtle or grounded or real most of the time, but that's just my opinion. This show would have really benefited from some filler episodes, because I would have loved to have seen more of what Rebel Taxi called camp counselor vibes. Also, sorry to say it, but I don't really vibe with Charlie and Vaggie's relationship. Maybe because Vaggie just doesn't really do it for me. I do like cold characters, I just don't think she's very well executed, and look, before someone tries saying I just hate Will-O-Wisp ships, I mostly ship Yuri in fandoms that I'm in. If they're not Yuri, I will make them Yuri, and I am also literally in the process of writing my own Yuri right now. So no, it wouldn't be fair to accuse me of having a bias against FF shipping in media. However, I might maybe a little bit accuse the show of doing that. Kinda. I don't think it has a bias against sapphicism, especially considering there are many bi and lesbian women who work on the show, including Vivzie herself, but more like a bias in favor of men. I mentioned earlier how they focus more on Alastor and Angel Dust, the latter of whom getting a kinda complete character arc over the main character, Charlie, and I feel that the writers are giving preference over the male characters. Hell, there's more yaoi baiting or sexual tension with two dudes who've never met, one of whom being asexual, and, pimp and the victim that he is trafficking, which I will get to this. Oh boy, will I get to this. The show is more concerned over giving fan service of MLM characters, whether they be canonized or not, over the, again, canon Yuri couple with the main character of the show. I've got nothing against BL, nothing but respect for Fujoshis who aren't misogynistic. I like BL myself, but I don't know. Don't call this a female-led or focused show if you're not going to focus on, you know, the female characters. I don't know if my point is clear, but when I am arguing this, I am not saying that there is zero focus on their relationship. Episode 3, they have some conflict and butt heads over whose approach is better to purifying the sinners. Vaggie is clearly trying to help a neurotic Charlie when her father's going to visit in episode 5, and episode 6 is showing that their relationship hasn't been as honest as Charlie would have liked, with episode 7 following the direct consequences of that. What I am arguing is that in this very fandom-based show, a lot of the fan servicey or the more creative elements are given to the male characters. For instance, I once did a tally sheet for every single Sakuga shot in the show, and I can't find the sheet, but a majority of the high-quality shots went to Alastor and Angel Dust, and Vaggie and Charlie were much lower than either of them and most of the other characters. The male characters also seem to get preference for creative, non-diegetic, and expressionist shots in the musical segments over the two female leads or just the female characters at all. You'll see some creative shots here and there in the songs led by the female characters, but they are noticeably much more grounded or diegetic in the literal environment they're in, while you get these zany, stylistic visuals with the male characters. I am not saying that all of the musical segments need to be zany and wacky. I can recognize that the more grounded approach to certain songs makes more sense. For instance, the first one does this for comedic effect. It parodies Disney I Want songs by setting one in hell. They also do this for drama, making the climax of the courtroom scene in episode 6 into You Didn't Know, reusing a bunch of leitmotifs and reprises, and I don't know musical terminology, sorry, I wasn't a theater kid. But why am I just watching Carmilla belt into the void during this really important and frankly underdeveloped power ballad, but the also underdeveloped Yaoi Bait Dad song with zero build up to it has all these neat visuals? This sounds like a really specific nitpick, but again, considering this is a show practically invented for fandom, there's more fan art fuel in Loser Baby and Hell's Greatest Dad than like More Than Anything or Whatever It Takes. Also, on Whatever It Takes, I wish Carmilla was more developed, because to anyone who wasn't following this show since the Tumblr days, I didn't really feel anything when this power ballad came on. Conceptually, I really like the Angel Killer having cinematic parallels with the Fallen Angel, and I think this having more buildup would have been so cool. Like, okay, the song slaps, but to most viewers, what does the scene do if you're not super familiar with the lore? I saw on the Twitter, I don't know if I can find the tweet right now because the search feature is basically broken, that they posted this song with the intent of being like, oh, the feels, don't you guys feel so much? And it's like, no, I don't know who these people are. How can I feel anything? I haven't been told anything about these guys. It feels like they're reserving any cool lore or interesting tidbits for the male characters, because again, they're willing to drop all this Alastor stuff, but nope. Carmilla, who is also a warlord and one of the lords of hell or something, I don't remember the exact terminology, she doesn't get anything. And I know she's not a main focus, whatever, but you also have the Princess of Hell, and you are not giving her as many cool lore tips or whatever as some of the other male characters, and it's kind of annoying to me because it just comes off that they don't care as much about the female characters in the show as the male ones, and this is, again, supposed to be a female-led show, so I don't... Also, on the subject of female characters, I just want to talk about Sarah and Emily for a bit because I really like their dynamic. Well, I don't have much to talk about. I just want to say, props to them. I think they're some of my favorite characters in this season. I wish their designs were not as whitewashed as they are, but I'm really excited to see this dynamic explored further in Season 2. I think they're a huge standout for me, and, you know, props to them. I want to see more of them. Alright, also, since we're on the subject of the Angels, I just want to have a spot to talk about them, and man, Adam is wasted potential. I already go over why he doesn't do it for me in my first video, but in concept, I really like the idea of, like, the Adam from the Bible being this annoying jock bro, and this is a good concept, but the show is emblematic of a lot of problems I have with some newer projects that come out, of being ideas first and execution second. I also wish Lute got more development, and all I'm gonna say about her is there's more tension and flavor in the Lute-Vaggie dynamic than Charlie and Vaggie. I might have some problems. Sorry. Okay, one last thing before moving on to the next section. Anyone else remember there being discourse when the pilot came out because people talked about it being offensive to name a lesbian character based on a certain part of anatomy, and the arguments against that were like, oh, it's based on the name Vagatha, it's not anything offensive, stop making assumptions, and then they confirmed the former in the actual show. Did I hallucinate that, or am I just, or did everyone just forget that? I don't know.
I am the cheese. I am the best character on the show. I am better than both the salami and the bologna combined.
Okay, so, I maybe have a bit of a bias towards snake characters, but god, I fucking love Sir Pentious. He has, I believe, the clearest voice out of all the characters in the show, and he's just a
Slithery, slippery, special little man.
He would have been perfect for this show's dire need of filler episodes. They fumble him in the last episode, which I think is by far the worst one, and throw a random romance in there, and even though he was my favorite, I didn't really gaff when Adam one-shotted him, but other than that, I think he's great. Hazbin really exceeds at cartoon hijinks, and he's an emblematic example of that. So I want this part to be just positivity, and being nice to the show, and... Huh? Okay. So they make a joke at some point in the same episode as Angel confronting his abuser about him getting assaulted. And he's also, allegedly, based off of one of Vivzi's ex-friends, who she made a caricature of to further mock him. Allegedly? Damn, we can't have shit in this house. Hey, so it's the end of the video, but I clearly have a lot more to say, what's up with that, and, well, you will have to wait for those in part 3, baby! So, if you want to hear what I have to say about some glaring omissions I have made throughout these 2 videos, maybe like and subscribe? Leave a comment, maybe? I don't know. Up to you. I forgot to do this in part 1, but I do want to give a special thank you to my twin who made the thumbnail and helped me write, and who watched the show with me. And also a thank you to my buddy Eric, who also watched it with me and helped with writing. I'd also like to thank my very close friend Sammy for helping with writing and looking things over for the past 3 videos, which the prior 2 have also done. My family has also been very supportive of my video making efforts, and I'm just really grateful to have so much support. I want to take this whole YouTube thing a little more seriously, and I want to try uploading a little more frequently. And I just want to thank all the friends and subscribers and commenters and family for all the helpful feedback and for sticking by. It means a lot. So yeah, see you in the next one.